What's up? It's your girl. Is it starting even?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Another episode. Hey, what's up? Hey, man. Hey, we're here again. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Jaw the Cup with KayRay. You are now sipping Jaw with KayRay. Please go get your tea right now. If you're not, pause this and go get your tea. What am I saying? Why? Don't pause this. Continue watching. Anyways, you should have had your tea ready before. Like... Hi, welcome back to another episode of Jaw the Cup with KayRay. This is an exciting episode because I can't wait for you to meet my guest. Before we do that though, we gotta give a shout out to our sponsors. Shout outs to Spacebar Co-working Space. Be sure to check them out on space-bar.ca and you can get more information on how you can get a membership here. And also, a huge shout out to our decor sponsors. I mean, look at this pillow, y'all. Look at these rugs and all these crystals. Make sure you go check them out on IG. With every purchase, you plant a tree. So you're really saving the environment, y'all. We have been working with Fujifilm to create new memories with this film, Insta-X Mini Film, and also the new Insta-X Mini Links. Print out these pictures and they come out in this beautiful film format. Our guest today is a YouTube sensation, creator, and activist based out of Toronto. Please welcome Stef Sanjati.
Hi, how are you? I'm excellent. Thank you for having me.
You look like a freaking rock star.
Oh, thank you.
Now.
That's the goal.
How are you feeling?
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, very calm.
That's a good feeling.
It's unusual for me, so
Oh.
I'm embracing it.
For those of you who don't know, Stef and I actually worked together on the Bad Words short film, which was an incredible short film that you put together for Bufferfest last year. I had an incredible experience. I mean, it was cool to be able to be a part of something with so many different creators from the city, and I think you had put all of us in this, like, you know, that we come from different backgrounds and whatnot, but I think what was cool about it was, like, you know, we're all experiencing the same thing when it comes to online bullying or talking about comments that we receive and kind of have to endure these struggles on our own, but realize we're not alone in the struggle. So do you want to talk about that a little bit, about how that came about and why you thought it was important to make into a short film?
Well, I'll be very honest. The idea actually was just like a 5-second thought. I was told basically, oh, you have this option to do a film for Buffer Festival. You need an idea for a potential sponsor, like ideally today. So then I was like, okay, give me 5 minutes. Then I sent my manager at the time that idea, and the brand liked it. In the end, the brand pulled out because I wouldn't censor the video. But that's really important because it's called Bad Words.
Yeah.
And I wanted to confront people with hearing the things that others would say online, because it's one thing to read a hate comment and say, oh, just ignore it.
Yeah.
But I wanted them to kind of be put in the creator's seat, or it's not always creators that get these kinds of comments too. So just put in the seat of hearing these slurs that you really don't hear as much in the physical world, just to confront them with it and how uncomfortable it should be to read that, right? And I'm glad that I didn't censor it, because it would have, to me, that was really important, that confrontational aspect.
Yeah, and I think you did a great job putting it together. Yeah, it was a lot for me to even hear too, because I was like, oh my God, I watched it again yesterday. And I was like, whoa, for me to be able to, like, I talked about comments that I had gotten in the past, and then also talking about the comments that we actually do get that are very positive.
Yes.
That was amazing. I was like, wow, my comments are so nice. My audience is so nice. And you just, like, remember that. It's great, yeah.
Well, thank you for putting yourself out there for the film.
Yeah.
And to, like, highlight that positive comment thing, it's very easy when you have a lot of negative comments to internalize those and to just kind of disregard all the positive ones. But to hear those out loud, even for yourself, rather than, you know, just swiping past the good ones to look for the bad ones, hearing them out loud is also very affirming, and it kind of lights my fire a little bit creatively. So I wanted to include that too.
Yeah, and it honestly, like, even for me, hearing back, I'm like, oh, the fact that they said these, like, it was so nice. Like, I'll put the clip in right now. 5 to 10 years down the road, the name KayRay will be up there with the other revolutionary women in the world. But until then, realize your own revolution has already begun, because you're already reaching so many eyes and ears around the world. It's just so nice that they were like talking about me being on a revolutionary road.
That comment was my favorite positive comment, and the whole thing, when you were, you brought the best positive comments.
Oh.
I was like so happy when you were reading those in the studio. It was great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk about this cool thing that you did last year. Last fall, you walked the Toronto Fashion Week.
Oh, I sure did.
Oh yeah, you've done. I did so.
I kind of forgot about it, but let's talk.
And I think you made such a statement by walking on the runway and having "Fuck Doug Ford" on your torso, and obviously it caught a lot of attention and caught a lot of attention on the media. Obviously, we know why we feel this way, but why was it important for you to come out with that statement so publicly?
There's a lot of reasons to oppose Doug Ford, especially when he was initially like running, and that was it was all over the media at the time. But for me specifically, there was one thing in particular where he reversed the sexual, he reversed, I love it. He reversed the sex ed curriculum in Ontario to no longer include LGBT education. And for me growing up, my high school experience and my like late elementary school experience was so bad as a young queer person in a small town that it left me with PTSD. And I know that's a common experience for us. And the sex ed curriculum, including that kind of education, was really important to me as a young person or as a young queer person to prevent that same experience happening for future children.
Right.
And for him to reverse that meant a lot more to me than just, oh no, like the sex ed curriculum is outdated. It was like, it feels like an attack.
Right.
Because it is, really.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's where my mind was at when I wrote that on my stomach for
For me, when I heard about the sex ed curriculum, I mean, there's young folks that are being sexually abused or sexually assaulted, and they don't have the vocabulary, the terminology for that. And a lot of them don't even know what's happening because of the way it's being imposed. A lot of this stuff happens at home, and so they don't think it's actually something that's wrong or something that they should take into like account that I need to tell someone about this. So when I heard about it, I honestly like thought of that immediately, as well as like, you know, young queer folks that are like trying to, you know, I understand their own identity and how they want to go about and navigate around the world, but like also have their peers understand what they're going through. And I think that was like, for me, a huge issue. I mean, you did a great job of like calling that out, because
I tried.
I mean, this call out culture is the way it is right now, but I think when it comes to politicians and like the people that are in authority, we have to be doing that. Yeah. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Just on that note, like I hear from people that it did get a fair amount of attention in the media, but what's interesting to me is that nobody actually reached out to me to talk about it. I don't even know where it showed up. I don't know what conversations were being had. I kind of felt like it was kind of brushed under the rug, but if you saw something, I'm glad, because you know, I wanted it to make some kind of statement for people to notice or to think about it, and I'm glad it did.
It definitely for me.
Very good.
Yeah. I think also what is incredible about the work that you do is that you're always being authentic with your audience. That's something you do take as like a priority.
I do.
It's hard for us to be so authentic, especially when we're going through trying times and like struggles. And even for myself, like I had to take some time off of YouTube. Thank you all for still being here. But I had to take some time, and it wasn't something I could announce or anything, but it just like simultaneously just started happening while like life was happening, and you know, things were changing and shifting in my career. But I think what's great about like the work that you do is that you do have like these conversations with the camera and your audience, and you're always telling them your personal journeys and your struggles. But I think it also, like the last couple of videos that I did watch, you were talking about how it felt like you had to do it. Like it started becoming your narrative to talk about being, you know, going through really difficult times and being, you know, going through mental health issues, experiencing your transition openly and publicly. I think that like of course is gonna have a huge effect on your mental health.
Yeah.
Although this like narrative is changing for you, how has it been for you to talk about these things that are not so easy, and why do you think it's so important for you to be so vulnerable with your audience?
There's a lot of factors in this, and I do talks at universities sometimes, or schools, or wherever, and I've kind of redone that whole talk and reformatted it and rewritten it as something called When We're Visible. And it kind of explains that entire it's basically the answer to what you asked.
Yeah.
The thing with me is that I grew up in a town where it was impossible for me to not be seen or not be commented on or not be looked at. And that's on account of my genetic mutation, Waardenburg syndrome, which gives me the white hair and my facial features and things like that. And there was nobody in my town that looked like me. So I got very used to being looked at. It became something I expected and something I worked with. So when YouTube became an option for me as a career, it was very natural for me to just lay it all out there. And initially my thought was, I want to be transparent about my transition to help other people, because I found information about transitioning and gender and sexuality ideas on YouTube. So I wanted to give back.
That's amazing that you did find that on YouTube. Yeah.
That was 100% how I figured it all out.
Wow.
Yeah. So I wanted to provide a resource so that other people could continue to figure that out if it applied to them. But now in hindsight, I think there's also this layer of, I'm so used to being looked at and commented on and seen, like from a childhood level before YouTube even existed for me, that almost my nature to like put myself out there for people to talk about, which is not, that doesn't sound the most healthy.
Yeah.
So I've been like grappling with that and trying to figure that out and process it and set new boundaries for myself.
Yeah.
But it is still important for me moving forward. Like I posted a video yesterday that's very transparent, but it's important for me if I'm going to keep talking about those very intense things and very real things, for me to be ready to do it rather than in the middle of that darkness talking about it, because I want to be able to present like a solution or feel like I'm not kind of ripping myself open for views. So it's new territory for me, this kind of self-compassion element, but it's very important for me moving forward.
I think also you were saying like how it's become a disservice to you as well, right?
Yeah. I think because I was always talking about dark, traumatic things, I was kind of presenting myself as exclusively a traumatized person rather than everything else I also am.
Right.
And
I think you're hilarious, by the way.
Yes. I appreciate that. And I definitely want to provide that kind of emotional outlet for people to feel things that maybe aren't as pleasant and process them and move forward. But I also don't want to put myself in that place and be stuck there.
Right.
So it's like tug of war. But I think I just have to keep reminding myself of what I need to do in the moment. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, especially because you're not just doing it on like YouTube, you're doing it on Instagram as well,
yeah,
right?
and Twitter.
And I think Twitter, exactly, because you were doing it at such a young age that it became something you naturally conditioned yourself to doing.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that you are taking care of yourself now, and like that's more important than anything else. I mean, of course, the audience is great, but I also think it's important for creators to take time, and because we're so used to seeing stuff online all the time that like, because people are more transparent with their mental health now, that people are also opening up a lot more on social media. So everyone is talking about something that they've gone through that's traumatic, and like, hopefully it resonates with younger folks, like, to make sure that they know they're not alone.
Right.
But I also feel like it's starting to like take a toll on the people that are sharing as well, right? Because then you don't want to be categorized into that. But I think it's great that you're also taking time for yourself.
When I was posting all of these really dark videos, like dark after dark after dark, just heavy, I was kind of being controlled by that eating disorder. And it went beyond just body shape and food. It was like, it had me in a position where I felt like the only value I had as a human being was my YouTube channel with lots of subscribers. And so my value became attached to whether or not the video did well. And I knew videos did well if I was talking about traumatizing things. So it became this cycle where I would try to break out of it, and then I would kind of fall back in because I was so stuck in this loop.
Right.
And that kind of goes into, you saying that creators talking about, being very real and also constantly being present and needing to take time away. I think that's so important. And I think it's more essential than people realize, because a lot of us get stuck, especially in creative or self-employed jobs, get stuck in a place where our job is ourself.
Yes.
And there's no
Oh my God,
separation,
I say
there's no
that
distance.
all the time, yeah.
I know, and it's in one side, it's great because you have control and you have like agency to do whatever you want, and that's wonderful. But it can tip into a place that's really unhealthy really quickly if you have nothing outside of your job that you feel gives you value. There always is.
Yeah, of course.
But we don't always see it.
Right.
And I think it's important to take stock of things outside of just one thing that gives us value,
And what do you feel like like you started noticing that you also bring value to? Yeah.
Well, let me tell you about a little thing.
Yes.
Speaking of real, I was in the hospital for 2 months for my eating disorder treatment.
Oh my God.
Oh, it was great. Don't worry.
Okay.
It was the best thing I've ever done for myself.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah. No, it was the best thing I ever. Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
Okay.
Because it allowed me to figure things out in the hospital. Basically, they taught me something about a pie chart, where you're supposed to divide the pie chart up into things that you feel give you value. And for example, for me before treatment, it was about 50% work and 50% my appearance. And now after treatment, and now that I've continued to kind of stabilize myself and keep checking myself, there's things like painting, my family, my friends, my dog.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
so cute.
Congrats on the
Thank
dog.
you. My creativity, my imagination, those things that you don't really think of as valuable,
Yeah.
it's so important to just remind yourself that you have more than just what you're putting out.
Yeah.
You know, you have things inside too.
Yeah.
And honestly, my appearance is used to be 50% or more. Now it's I don't even care. I like to have fun with my appearance, but I no longer associate it with value. And I think, I hope that more people can get to that place.
I think it is hard. I mean, the pie chart example you're giving, I think we're so used to putting our value, especially as creators. What do I put out to the world? And if I'm not getting as many likes or views, then I'm not valuable anymore.
What am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me?
Exactly.
When there's probably not anything wrong with you.
Yeah,
It's just, but yeah, you're right. We're so conditioned to attaching our value to that for sure.
Yeah, and I've had that struggle as well, and especially when your brand is your personality.
Yep.
It's weird.
Oh, I know that feeling. I almost feel a little bit of envy for those channels that are like product review channels, or
Same.
I'm like, oh my gosh, imagine people coming to watch you for things that aren't you.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to dress up.
Yeah.
You don't have to. I wish I would have gone in a direction like that. But I mean, it's too late now.
Yeah.
I don't have anything I can showcase like that. But
Yeah.
I also wish that as a culture, the YouTube community, the viewers would also kind of provide that same respect for the personality-based channels. I know it's more complicated than that,
No,
but
of course.
I think there's a conversation to be had there at some point on some level.
But you know what it is? You're also entertaining. You have when you speak, when you tell your stories online, and I watch all your videos, and you're you have a presence. Your videos are 20 to 25 minutes long, but then I watch
Thank you.
the whole because you're a great storyteller. I feel like you're really good at it. So there's also a difference on that too. The people that are doing the product reviews are
That's
also
fair.
Just doing product reviews.
I get that.
And they don't have any
do.
interesting stories to tell.
That's very fair. That means a lot coming from you, because you're also an excellent storyteller. That's kind of I feel like you really excel at that. That's from my perspective, that seems to be your superpower.
Oh my God.
So thank you for seeing that too. Oh, thank you.
Also, one thing that you said was really interesting, and you mentioned this while you were talking, is yes, it's important to obviously talk about your mental health and talk about these things openly if you are able to. No, you don't have to.
100%.
That's the thing. That's what my question is. Why do people think they have to now? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Almost it's a trend, which is a weird trend.
Okay, I feel like the phenomenon of YouTube as a career and the phenomenon of YouTubers talking about their mental health and their personal lives kind of occurred simultaneously. And so these new people coming onto the scene figured that they were connected inherently. And so if I'm going to be a YouTuber, I need to talk about all of my problems, and I need to talk about trauma and my mental health, which if you want to and you do it responsibly for yourself and for your audience, great. But I really think there is this idea that equals success. And the reality is, with digital creation, there is no formula. You can come on and do something completely different. And realistically, that's more likely to get you success than doing the same thing as somebody else.
Exactly.
I think there is this idea that it's like a brand.
Yeah.
And
sad.
Yes, and I got stuck in that, and it's not pleasant, and it doesn't work either. You know, I think most of my success as a YouTuber came from when I was telling stories and I was talking about myself, but it wasn't centered around all of the bad things that happened. It was more about moving forward and hopefulness, and I really hope I can get back to that place with my content. I'm trying to, and I think I'm making the right moves, because what's important to me as a creator is that people leave the video feeling better than they did when they arrived. And if I'm not doing that, I feel like I'm doing something wrong.
Right.
Or for the most part, unless it's like a fuck Doug Ford moment.
I would love to hear your perspective on someone like me. How can we be better allies to the LGBTQ plus community, and how can we do more to be honest, because we could be doing more.
Yeah, I mean, there's always room for more. But at the same time, there are, there's fights on all fronts for all kinds of different marginalized people. And with LGBT people specifically, there's a lot of intersections. And so for myself, with my personal life, I'm at a place where I personally don't really need allyship. You know what I mean? But there are a lot more vulnerable groups within the trans community specifically, but across the spectrum, especially Black trans women that are murdered at a way higher rate than anybody else.
Yeah.
And to be honest, for me, I don't have all the answers of how to be a better ally to that group. But what I try to do, and what you can do, for example, is to amplify those voices on, for example, on Twitter. I'm trying to stay up to date with what's happening and trying to retweet the right voices that are more aware or more knowledgeable on what needs to be done. And I think that is a great thing you can do as an ally for any group.
Yeah.
I feel like as a trans person, I often forget that it can be confusing at first. So I would say, if you have a specific question, like for example, what pronouns are, or does singular they make sense grammatically, or what does transgender even mean? If you look that up on YouTube, you will find answers, and I think that's also good. To have those questions, to ask them on the appropriate platform. So, for example, for me, if I'm in public and somebody recognizes me as trans for some reason, I wouldn't love it if they came up and asked me questions. Yeah. But if they have a question, there's definitely answers online, and there's people that want to provide them. A lot of my old original content is about answering those questions. Yeah. So I would say, figure out what your questions are and ask them online, and you'll get answers.
Yeah, I think you have a really great videos that talk about that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, very informative. I love the one with your parents.
Yeah.
Where you're talking about those like
terminology, right? And having them guess.
Yeah. What can we look forward to? And what is this next journey going to look like for 2020, Stef Sanjati?
Well, let me tell you, I don't have as many specific plans as people would like. Listen, but like, I'm okay. I don't know how much everybody here loves astrology, but I'm a Sagittarius stellium.
I love astrology.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So I'm Sagittarius in literally everything except for my moon, which is an Aquarius. Okay. So I am the most impulsive. I do not plan ahead at all. Even my talks at schools, when I said, I rewrote it, it's because I never wrote it in the first place. I would just wing them every single time. So as a Sagittarius stellium, I don't have any plans, but I have ideas. And so moving forward, I really, historically, especially when I was really sick with my eating disorder, I would try to put out this image of, kind of like, I can swear, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like fashion bitchy, you know what I mean? And that really isn't real to my,
bitchy.
yeah, like, and I can't. So I'm trying to move forward, just be more, if I'm authentic in a YouTube video, I want to be authentic on Instagram too. Nobody looks like this when they're walking down the street. Who does that?
Can you imagine just walking like this all the time? It's the worst when like people, did something just fall?
Yeah, I don't know what, I think it was, we're just really excited.
Like I'm just like,
you really did.
Yeah. For example, people are like, it's like they're really messed up, like something tragic just happened in the world. And then they put a booty pic up. Like it's
and they're like, donate to save the turtles, and it's just only ass.
Yeah. Donate to save the Amazon.
And I understand, you get more engagement, but I think as, for people that have platforms, I think we have a responsibility to try to correct that.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely messed up.
Yeah.
And it definitely makes no sense.
Yeah.
I think we need to encourage our viewers to care about things other than bodies. And I think that really ties into everything I want to do moving forward. I want to encourage a lot of body neutrality over, body positivity is great, especially, I think there's a place for that and there's definitely a need for it, but I think there's also a need for body neutrality and valuing things outside of your body or your looks. Right. And I really want to really emphasize that moving forward. Yeah. So for that and self-compassionate content, visit me online.
And how can they find you online?
You can find me at Stef Sanjati on YouTube, Twitter, or Instagram.
Thank you, Stef.
Thank you.
You are amazing.
Thank you, so are you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, thank you.
This was a great interview.
This is, that's so nice of you. Thank you.
Oh my God, thank you.
Well, okay,
Bye.
next time.
Next time what?
Next time come back.
Please.
Please come back.